at the end of the day, they're either not going to be able to extend the tax cuts, right? Or they're going to figure out how to either balance it with some cuts and raising some revenue, okay? Or they're going to add to the debt. And then this whole conversation about the debt no longer has any merit whatsoever, ever again.
Hello and welcome to the Bulwark Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Miller. Delighted to have back Democratic Congressman from Parkland, Florida. He was elected in 2022. He's formerly Florida's Director of Emergency Management. It's Jared Moskowitz. How you doing, Congressman?
What's going on, Tim? How you doing?
I'm pumped to have you back.
I like this casual look for both of us, by the way.
Yeah, we're just hanging. We're just a couple guys hanging. Yeah, you know, that's what the people demanded, right? In the election, just bros hanging out and like.
Well, they didn't want this. They voted against the status quo, so I took my suit off.
Okay, great. I'm for it.
Yeah,
I like what you've been doing all together. Not just your outfit, but you're on Fox. Engaging with Jesse Waters, that's good. You've been, calling these Republicans on their BS on the budget stuff. So I want to get into the tactical, but we do have a couple news items we got to do first. Yesterday, there's a press conference where Trump explained who he thought was to blame for the Ukraine war. I want to listen to that.
But today I heard, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal. I could have made a deal for Ukraine that would have given them almost all of the land, everything, almost all of the land, and no people would have been killed, and no city would have been demolished, and not one dome would have been knocked down. But they chose not to do it that way.
You shouldn't have started it. They chose not to do it that way. You might think he'd be talking about Putin there, but he was talking about Zelensky. Wondering what you thought about that.
Well, it's funny. Like you almost like want him to keep going because you feel like the next statement is going to be like, in fact, the deal we had is they were going to keep Ukraine and we were going to give them Gaza. So we were going to expand Ukraine. Okay, that was the deal we had. And the Palestinian people would have loved it. You just wanted him to keep going just to see like where this was headed. But look, Trump, and he's been doing this for a long time, is very good at taking someone else's argument and weak point and co-opting it, right? Yeah. Anything that he says it's weaponized government, right? And then he weaponizes it more, but he gets away with it because the Democrats weaponized it. He's fixing it with more weaponization. And this is the same thing. He's literally taking the argument against Russia and using it against Ukraine. Obviously, this is not productive. It's not where we want the situation to be with Ukraine. I do want the war to come to an end. I do think that's important. I do think, Ukraine is probably not going back to the pre-2014 border. I think that's probably the case. But what they give up to get to a deal after that, I think has massive repercussions, not just for Europe and our relationships in Europe, but also for China and Taiwan. We know that the Chinese are watching what happens here. And if you look at the European reaction, I mean, they do not seem happy with the developments of the last week. But I then take a step back from that, and I want to take my own advice that I've been giving myself, which is I'm not going to react to everything that Trump says, in the moment that he says it. I'm not doing that the next 4 years like we did the first 4 years. Because if we were doing that, then, let's just talk about all of these things. Canada is going to be the 51st state, right? Governor Trudeau. That was kind of funny. I laughed at that one. Governor Trudeau, right? They're going to be the 51st state. That's not going to happen, of course, because if Canada became the 51st state, there would be 2 Californias. Republicans could never win another election. So that's not going to happen. We're Panama, we're going to take the canal, maybe with military force, not taking that off the table. That's not going to happen. We're getting Greenland.
We are making the Panamanians take migrants who are not criminals, who came to the country like for religious freedom. And there's a New York Times article yesterday where an Iranian Christian came to America hoping for religious freedom, and we deported them to Panama as part of our effort to bully them over the canal. So that's a real thing that's happening.
But obviously the language that Trump was using, none of that's going to happen. We're going to get Greenland. Also, Tim, we're getting Greenland. Okay. From our Danish friends, that's also not going to happen. And then, of course, Gaza, the Riviera of the Middle East. We're just going to get it. How are you going to get it, Mr. President? You going to buy it? No, we're not going to buy it. First of all, who would be the realtor for that? That would be a great 6%. But like, okay, you're gonna take it. You're gonna take it by military force? No troops. Well, how are you gonna get it, Mr. President? We're just gonna get it. And so, all of this distraction that he's great at, that we kind of jump at all of the time. I'm trying to have a different strategy. Going back to tactics, I'm just trying to have a different strategy and take a step back. And we'll have a quick response to it, but then just I'm just not going to have. I'm not going to be at a 10 all the time. I have to have degrees of outrage here. We can't just always be at a 10. Just like everything isn't a constitutional crisis. I hear that a lot nowadays. Oh, that's a constitutional crisis. That's a constitutional crisis. Well, if everything's a constitutional crisis, nothing's a constitutional crisis. And eventually, if Trump does disregard the Supreme Court and we do have a constitutional crisis, it won't mean anything because we've already said everything else is a constitutional crisis. And so, look, obviously, what Trump is saying now is similar to what he said during the campaign, which many people found problematic. There seemed to be a pullback of that language when in his first couple of weeks as president, but now we're back to trying to curry favor with Putin. I actually believe, by the way, this is just my belief. I believe that there won't be a deal anytime soon because I think Trump's going to give Putin kind of everything he kind of wants, and then Putin's going to say he wants more, and then that's going to blow the deal up. I mean, Putin's going to go ahead.
Yeah, no, let's just talk about the deal real quick. So I want to get back to tactics, but this was where I was going next. I want to listen to Rubio just really quick, and I want to talk about the substance of what they're proposing here. Let's listen to Marco.
The credible opportunities that exist to partner with the Russians geopolitically on issues of common interest, and frankly, economically, on issues that hopefully will be good for the world and will also improve our relations in the long term between these two important countries.
I don't even really get this deal from like the deal making standpoint. Like even if you took aside, morals or the US values or allies and just said, let's cut a good deal with Russia that's good for us. What is this? What is the deal exactly? What is Russia giving up in this deal? We don't need economic partnership with them. They need sanctions relief from us. It's not like we're like getting a lot of Russian products here that that they're a huge market for us. I guess if you're a diamond jeweler in New York or like a really high-end real estate person, you might need some Russian. But like other than that, like what are we getting out of this deal? Like it seems to me like we're giving Ukraine away from nothing, just like looking at it from just a deal standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, look, I like Marco a lot. I'm happy Marco's the Secretary of State, especially in comparison to some of the other picks. Yes. Remember, everything's relative.
What did he say yesterday that would have been different from what, I don't know, Corey Lewandowski would have said as Secretary of State? What did he say?
Well, let's not ever get to the point that we test that difference.
I'm just wondering.
Okay.
I would like to have heard what he said different. That's
when you think the line can't go any further, we continue to move it. So let's not tempt them, please.
Okay.
But look,
Jesse Waters.
Marco didn't blink during that statement, right? And so, at the end of the day, there were no specifics there, right? But I do think there is something happening with this Gaza stuff and this Ukraine stuff, which is Trump wants to prove to the world that he can solve the most difficult foreign policy things. Biden couldn't solve it. No one could solve it. Only he can solve it. He wants the Ukrainians to give up a lot of these, as he says, raw earth materials, right? Yeah. And apparently he's asked for so much and the Ukrainians have said no, or they've said no to how much he wants. Well, by the way, as soon as they said no to how much he wants, notice the pivot of Trump. Oh, okay. You won't give me what I want, which is these raw earth materials in exchange for our continued investment. No problem. I'll pivot and I'll go full, direction of Putin. Won't even invite you to the meeting. I'll get my Secretary of State to read a statement.
I thought America First was about getting us stuff. We're not getting shit out of this deal.
Slogans. You're throwing out the slogans.
Ukraine is giving up everything. We're losing our. We're creating conflict with our allies. We're adding tariffs to our allies. So that's going to cost us more money. Like none of the. What do these deals get for us? I haven't seen anything that is an America First deal yet. To me.
Yeah, no, I love that you're throwing out the slogans. right?
I'm just trying to judge him on the metrics that he set for himself. Again,
of course.
I don't like that. I'm a neocon. I'm not a real America First realist. But what I'm saying is he's failing on his own metrics, unless America First is just Trump first. I do get that. That's all this is about.
Well, by the way, the Trump administration has even stopped posting the metrics of the deportation data, because the data is actually below the deportations of Joe Biden.
Yeah.
At this moment in time. Look, this is no different than we're going to fix egg prices on day one. Egg prices are now the highest they've ever been. This is no different than, 24 hours. I can solve the Ukraine war in 24 hours, right? Mm-hmm. Well, we're a little beyond that. Inflation. I'll solve inflation. I'll get interest rates down. Inflation's bumping. Interest rates are stagnant. And look, this is the hyperbole of the campaign that we saw the first time around, and it works, which is why he does it. People buy it, and then we can distract people with, we're buying Greenland, we're buying Gaza, Canada, Panama, right? And it's like everybody who watches a car accident, and slows traffic down. Everyone's jumping at these distractions, or when all this other stuff's going on. So look. We have to watch the Ukraine thing. It's obviously very concerning, the current trajectory coming out of the United States. Ukraine is going to have to give up something, right? Sure. This idea that
Russia should probably give up something too. Russia shouldn't get stuff. That's I guess my main problem.
Russia's going to have to retract from some of their positions. There's no question.
Yeah.
No question about that. And is also the future. What's the future look like? For this region? But obviously, we will have major problems with China, and we'll have major problems with our European allies. If we just look like we're kowtowing to Putin. In fact, let me give you a real scenario. Trump proposes a deal, and they say no. And Trump says, what's his repercussion? We're going to not supply the weapons anymore? Okay, fine. He says, I'm not going to supply the weapons anymore. And Europe says, we'll step up. Okay, so now, not only did Trump not solve the problem, now he's been cut out from the table, because Europe decides to move forward anyway, and there's no deal. And now we have a real Europe-Russia war, which can affect the U.S. economy in dramatic ways. So he's got to be very, in my opinion, careful on how far he goes to where he pushes Europe into having no choice but to continue the war without us.
All right, let's move on to what I really wanted to talk to you about, which is the budget stuff, because they're in a real pickle on this. And I liked what you I think tweeted, I forget, or said on an interview. They're like, it said basically, I'm for a balanced budget amendment. Let's do it. Let's do a balance. Yeah. Let's balance the budget this year, and call them on their BS, because they don't have. Getting to a budget is very challenging. Just as one microcosm, last night Trump said on Sean Hannity that he doesn't want to touch Medicaid. Today he said, I support the House budget, which cuts Medicaid by like $800 billion or something. And so you've got Chip Roy, I got here, said every Republican needs to actually step up to honor what they've campaigned on when they say they want to balance the budget and reduce spending. So there's Chip Roy, your colleague. Meanwhile, Trump wants extension of the tax cuts, no tax on tips. Like, the math just doesn't math for them. And so the question is, how do the Democrats deal with that? And I'm curious your view.
Well, so there are lots of things going on with this whole situation, right? First, let's just start with the math, right? Yeah. And people know this. We've heard mandate. The American people voted for mandate. We have a mandate. Okay, we get it. Except in the House, they only have a 3-vote majority. Yeah. Doesn't really sound like much of a mandate. Very different from 2016, when I think Trump had like a 25+ vote majority in the House.
2010, or I need to just go back to any history.
Exactly. Doesn't sound like much of a mandate in the House. So the numbers are a problem. In fact, the numbers right now, they don't even have the 3-vote majority, because you're missing 2 members from Florida. They have a 1-vote majority. But in April, they'll go back to a 3-vote majority. Okay. So that's the math, number one. Number two is you have DOGE, right? And DOGE is doging, right? It's doing way more than they said it was going to do. They said it was going to audit and, present the findings, give it to Congress. They're cutting things and firing people and do all of that. And they're saying they're saving all of this money. Let's not dispute that. Let's just say what they say is happening.
We do have to dispute just the one thing really quick. The New York Times is saying that they said that they cut an $8 billion contract, but they got a zero wrong, and it was $8 million, actually. It was only $8 million. They thought they cut $8 billion, but it was only $8 million.
What's a zero between friends?
Okay. We do have to just dispute that one fact. But anyway, besides that, let's not dispute it.
Look, there's lots of stuff we can dispute, but let's just go with their argument, right? That they have found all this fraud, waste, and abuse, and it's $100 billion. That's what they say. Okay. Let's keep going. Well, the government is going to shut down on March 14th. We're going to run out of money. Okay. And we've been doing a CR. That's how we've been running our government, just by continuing resolution, which is, by the way, how you get this problem. The Republicans have done continuing resolutions for the last 2 years. Mike Johnson's on the path to do another continuing resolution. That's how you get this problem, because you continue programs that shouldn't be continued, right? And that's how you get waste and abuse. Okay. Now let's also get to the issue that there are 30 to 40 Republicans that will never vote for a clean CR. Never. And even if Trump calls them and whittles that number down, let's say the best case scenario for them is 15. Okay, we whittled it in half. So this is the same thing we've been talking about for the last 2 years. They have to come to the Democrats in order to get a CR, in order to keep government open. Well, there's just one problem, Tim. Let's go back to the $100 billion of fraud. The $100 billion, they say, of fraud, waste, and abuse. Well, a clean CR would refund all of that stuff. It would refund it,
right?
Okay, because you would continue last year's stuff. Well, we can't do that. You can't tell the American people we have found all this fraud, waste, and abuse, and then tell Congress, but refund it all. Okay, not only can you not do that because it's fiscally ridiculous, it's also a trap for Democrats, okay, that they think we're going to walk into, where they can be like, they want to keep the government open so bad that we're going to put a clean CR. They're going to refund all that fraud, waste, and abuse. And then we're going to come out and be like, can you believe the Democrats? They refunded the condoms to Gaza, which wasn't a thing, but that's what they'll say. And so what I've been out there talking ad nauseum on the floor and in interviews saying is, Speaker Johnson now has less than a month to pass the 12 individual appropriations bills. That's how you pass a budget. A promise Speaker Johnson made when he became Speaker. They had passed 7 of them and then stopped. Why? Because they're fighting amongst themselves. Republicans can't agree amongst themselves. So right now, we are on a collision course that the government is going to shut down on March 14th. And Johnson's going to come forward with a clean CR with California wildfire funding, and he thinks we're just going to go for it. I want to be very clear. I don't want to close the government, okay? I don't think Democrats should have a close the government as a strategy. I don't think we should do that. Republicans did that many times before, but I don't think we should do that. But I think we should be intellectually honest with the American people. They have told you they have found all this fraud, waste, and abuse. Fine. Then we can't continue it. We must pass a new budget. Or, Elon, you must be transparent. You must send the list of all of this stuff to Congress so we can attach it to a CR, which would defund all of that stuff for an up or down vote. So these are the choices I think Speaker Johnson has. A clean CR is not a choice for me as an individual.
Hey, y'all, I've been on the content grind, as you have noticed, but I'm getting to the point where if you start having that late afternoon coffee, it prevents me from having a good night's sleep. So I was turning to an alternative that makes you feel a little less jittery, and that is our sponsor, Mudwater. If you're trying to cut those coffee jitters or just want to avoid that 2 p.m. crash, Mudwater is the cozy, nourishing drink to help you power through. It's got a blend of chai, turmeric, and adaptogen mushrooms to actually help you feel more focused, not wired. It's smooth, it's steady, and honestly, it just makes you feel better. So if you're looking for that afternoon coffee alternative, try it today and save big. Our listeners get up to 43% off your entire order, free shipping, and a free rechargeable frother if you head to mudwtr.com and use the code THEBulwark at checkout. And now Mudwater is available at Target and Sprouts locations in the U.S., so it's never been easier to grab a cup of this winter-friendly pick-me-up. So, once again, if you're ready to make the switch to cleaner energy, head to mudwater.com and grab your starter kit today. Right now, our listeners get an exclusive deal up to 43% off your entire order plus free shipping and a free rechargeable frother when you use code THEBulwark. That's right, up to 43% off with code THEBulwark at mudwtr.com. After your purchase, they'll ask you how you found them. Please show your support and let them know we sent you. Keep your energy natural and refreshing all year long with Mudwater, because life's too short for anything less than clean, delicious energy. Hey, YouTube fam, if you want to support The Bulwark, the best way to do it is by becoming a YouTube Bulwark Plus member. The Bulwark is truly independent. We have no corporate overlords. We're not settling any dumb lawsuits with Trump. By joining, you help support our work, and you can get a bunch of perks right here on this platform. Ad-free content, bonus videos, live streams, and some emojis of me, which I guess some people want. So come join, come hang out, become a Bulwark YouTube Plus member, and I'll be seeing you in the comments. So behave. Do you think any of your colleagues will be interested in a clean CR with California fires? That would seem like a ridiculous thing to vote for all the reasons that you laid out, in addition to the fact that the Democrats don't actually get anything about that. There are Republicans in California. You didn't get anything about that deal. That would sound to me like the Trump-Ukraine deal.
Well, remember, this goes to the how they negotiate, which is, well, if you don't take it, we're gonna only send the money, with strings attached, right? Which is the stuff they were floating out there for a couple weeks. Look, I'm a former emergency management director. Disaster aid is very important. I understand how important it was. But back in December, when they tied disaster aid to raising the debt ceiling, something that had never happened before, right? Democrats did not vote for that. And eventually they uncoupled it and we got disaster aid 2 days later. So the disaster aid for California is going to happen. Yeah. Okay. It has to happen, because if they don't send it to California, then what they're doing is they're breaking the system, and it's only a matter of time till disaster aid doesn't go to Texas or Florida. Yeah. Right. And so if they start that game, it's extremely dangerous. And so that will come. But I think Democrats need to hold Republicans to their position. And I want to get to the debt. Yes. I want to get to the debt.
That's where I was going next. Go for it.
Okay. DOGE isn't just about efficiency, government efficiency, fixing computers, making things faster. It's not just about, trying to shrink the workforce. It's also about saving money. Okay. Yeah. Well, $100 billion. Look, Tim, if that's true, that's a lot of money. We cannot downplay that to Americans is a lot of money. But in a 36,
it's probably not true. But if it is true,
but hold on. But let's not go down that rabbit hole. Let's just say their math is mathing. Okay. They found $100 billion. Well, in a $36 trillion debt, $100 billion, right, is not a lot of money in that relative speak. Sure. It's a lot of money in general. It is, but not in a $36 trillion debt. So how are we going to get at that debt? All right, which is what DOGE wants to do, and that's what the Freedom Caucus has been talking about for a long time, is we got to get at that debt. Well, we're going to have to probably have steep cuts in some departments, okay? And we're probably going to have to close loopholes, because you're going to have to raise revenue. Trump did that before, by the way, getting rid of mortgage deduction, right? He's done that before.
Maybe not extend the tax cuts on the highest income.
Well, hold on.
People.
So let's get there, right? Or not extend the tax cuts, right? But what they've proposed at this moment in time, even with the cuts to Medicaid, right? Based on math, they want to do a $4.5 trillion tax cut. They want to cut, I think, $1.5 trillion. Well, if that math is correct, it looks like we're adding $3 trillion to the debt.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
and they voted today, by the way, since they put out that budget, Elon voted today sending people a $5,000 DOGE check, which would be about another $1 trillion. So, so 3 or 4 trillion, depending on whether you're listening to Elon or Mike Johnson.
So, we got to hold Republicans to their positions. Yeah. They care about the debt, then we should add no money to the debt. They care about eliminating money from government, then we should hold them to that position. They say they found all this money, $100 billion, DOGE found it, then hold them to that position, no clean CR. We got to hold them to their positions, and we got to watch the wedges that exist within the Republican Party themselves. We got to let them go at each other, which is what we saw the last 2 years. That will happen. And we're going to find out if they're really only fiscal hawks when Democrats are in control. We're going to find out if they really care about the debt. We're going to find out if Thomas Massie and Chip Roy and 10 or 12 others, if they're willing to hold the line on this. And we're going to find out really if DOGE is serious about going after the debt. If they're serious about going after the debt, which is what Elon always talked about. Elon talked about we're going off the fiscal cliff. We got to cut our spending, right? He's talked about that. Well, if that is serious, okay, and you're tweeting things like balanced budget, which he has tweeted, which is why I'm coming with that resolution, then at the end of the day, they're either not going to be able to extend the tax cuts, right? Or they're going to figure out how to either balance it with some cuts and raising some revenue, okay? Or they're going to add to the debt. And then this whole conversation about the debt no longer has any merit whatsoever, ever again. And yes, I know someone's probably thinking, well, Jared, Trump added, he added more to the debt in his 4 years. Yeah. And I would say, yes, but this time around, they've made the debt the issue. They've made it the issue. So since they've made it the issue, we got to hold them to it.
I agree. So do you have any Republicans yet co-signing with you on your resolution?
On the balanced budget? Yeah, I think I'll get some Freedom Caucus members.
You do?
Yeah, but Johnson's not going to pick it up. He's not going to hear it.
That's exciting. But I think that it's important that they get on the record on this, though. And this is where we are completely aligned. And I think that maybe they are coming to realize how big of a pickle they're in. The only way out of this, frankly, for them at the end of the day is Trump bullying them all to push through something that is absolutely fiscally irresponsible in the extreme. And maybe that'll happen. And maybe Chip Roy and all of those guys will have to swallow their pride. I don't know. We'll see. They should be forced to make a judgment call on that.
Yeah, there's three ways out of the situation. One is they can make a deal with us, right? That would be bipartisan and bring responsibility. I think there are enough Democrats that
hopefully it's a good deal.
Yeah, look, I think there are enough Democrats, looking at the fact that, yes, we need to make government more efficient. Yes, we need to figure out how to curtail our spending. I think the American people voted for that. And I think Democrats recognize that. Okay. So they could talk to us. Two, the government could, they have not. They have not done that. Two, the government could shut down. And when I say they could talk to us, I don't mean Johnson because he's not in charge. Right. I mean the White House.
Yeah.
Okay.
Elon.
Correct.
Elon hasn't come in front of the committees yet. They've come to meet with you guys. Where can you get a deal? No, none of that.
No, none of that. Okay. So they could talk to us. Number two is they could shut the government down. Right. And, the government could shut down, I say indefinitely, just because I don't know how long it would take to reopen. The government could shut down indefinitely and they could try to pressure campaign, their way through it. Or three is the fiscal conservatives, to your point, just disregard everything they've ever stood for the last couple of decades and give in to adding to the debt. These are the three ways out.
I'm excited to see how that turns out. All right, last thing for you. Just because I know it's something you've been speaking out on, I try to not ignore when things like this happen. There was a protest that got kind of violent yesterday in Brooklyn, in Boro Park, protesting residents of an Orthodox Jewish neighborhood. We continue to see this around the country, and I just want to make sure it's not being ignored. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I could do an hour on this.
Yeah.
And this is something that's been going on now for probably a solid year, right? We saw it on college campuses. We saw it in streets. And, one thing that people always talk about is that you can be anti-Israel without being anti-Semitic. And I would say, Tim, I think that is possible. I think you can be anti-Israel without being anti-Semitic. I think it's possible. It's just not happening, right? I mean, it's theoretically possible, okay? And so they tell us all the time, right? Oh, Jared, don't conflate our criticism of Israel with being anti-Semitic. And I would say, I'm not conflating it. You're the ones who are conflating it. I mean, why are you protesting in front of a synagogue? Why are you beating up Jewish kids because they're just wearing a Jewish star? You don't know their position on Israel. You don't know if they support Netanyahu. And so, to be clear, everything you're seeing in this country on these college campuses and in the streets is anti-Semitic protest. Not every individual person that's there, but the protest, the genesis of these protests are anti-Semitic. anti-Semitic. They're going to Jewish delis, right? They see an Orthodox guy on the street. They're accosting them. And every Jewish parent around this country, when they saw the stuff going on in college campuses, knew deep down that if it wasn't a Jewish student that was being surrounded and assaulted and prevented going from class, but it was another minority group, we know it would not have gotten past lunchtime on the first day. And so, look, there are a lot of Jewish families in my district, Democrat families, that voted for Donald Trump because of this reason. Okay. Donald Trump only lost my district by 1.5 points. And I have a big Jewish population.
What'd you win by?
I won by 5.
Yeah.
And so this was a big deal within the Jewish community, which is about 12% of the voting bloc here in my district.
Yeah.
And that's because Trump had tough language. So we're going to have to see now what happens. Trump talked about, obviously, people here on student visas that are going to these pro-Hamas rallies, deporting them. Trump's talked about getting firm on the universities. And look, these universities who didn't enforce their code of conduct, right, who took months and months and months to figure out how do we prevent the assaulting of Jewish students on our campuses and totally failed, right, to watch that hearing last year where the university presidents, right, couldn't explain with an easy question that now has made Elise Stefanik famous. Okay. This is a big problem in this country. It's why I've been fighting against not just my progressive friends who have been silent, okay, but also the folks on the right who are allowing all of this Nazi speech,
including the shadow president
online. Because, in the nature of free speech, you can literally see, as we have allowed more Nazis on Twitter or on X, you're seeing the number of violent anti-Semitic attacks rise. Speech and violence are rising at the same time. Yeah. And so we're at historic levels of anti-Semitism since World War II. And the Jewish community is very worried about where all of this is going.
Yeah, it's Parkland Week here at the Bulwark. I started another pod, FY pod. People should go subscribe with your boy Cameron Kasky, who went to Parkland, and we talked about this issue. We talked about this issue yesterday, and anti-Semitism among youth. And it is, and in this case, it really is a both sides situation. Like if you just look at the numbers, it actually was like there was a recent poll where people were asked directly, like, do you have a favorable or unfavorable opinion of Jews? Like it was an extremely straightforward question. And among the youngest cohort, the highest group was Trump supporters, but not far below that was Democrats. And the numbers were like 20% higher. I don't have it in front of me, but significantly higher than among our age and up. So, and it's a real thing.
No, the alt-right and the far left, it's like one of the few things they agree on. They get there different ways, by the way. The far left gets there by being significant, anti-Israel, wanting the country to be wiped off the map. And the far right gets there with, pro-Nazi talk.
Calipers.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Jared Moskowitz, appreciate you very much, man. Hold the line. I'm excited to see how things go with the budget resolution. I'll be making a list of your colleagues that join, and we'll see how it turns out.
You got it, Tim. Appreciate it.
Later, bud.